Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria and
Todd of Tods Workshop.
So welcome Todd, you've got something quite special to show us today, haven't you? What is this?
This is a Balestrino, also known as an assassin's crossbow.
Right.
We'll come to that.
So Balestrino, it's Italian for little crossbow,
Little
basically,
crossbow.
isn't it? Yeah.
It is a crossbow, it's little.
Is it an assassin's crossbow?
Well, so as far as I know, they were never called that at the time.
Yeah.
There are very, very few, if any, accounts of them being used. I've heard about an account of the son of the Doge of Venice shooting passers-by out of his bedroom window.
Lovely.
Whether he did or not, I don't know.
Right.
It was just a friend of mine who said that he'd read it. Never got to the bottom of where the context was. What they are is a small breed of crossbows from around about 1600, give or take a little bit. So in the age of gunpowder, which is quite important. They're all loaded by a screw jack of some kind. So what happens is you've got a screw jack built in and a trigger block here. And you've got a little rotating nut, very similar to a sort of a large size system.
So it's a steel bow, just
Steel
like a
bow.
normal...
This one is 212 pounds in draw weight.
Wow.
So it's heavy.
That's a lot of power in a small bit of metal, isn't it?
It is, yes. I mean, it's 25 centimetres, 10 inches across.
So what you did there was you undid something so you could slide forward essentially what's kind of like the breech.
Yes, kind of. So it's the whole trigger system is here. And so, well, actually, I'll talk you through it. So basically, the nut is held back by a little lever there. And so when you put the string on here, nothing can rotate. It holds the string. You pull that back and the system releases.
So that's the trigger.
That's
so
the
it's
trigger.
a thumb trigger.
That's important because if the trigger was underneath, like this is just a carrying hook.
Okay.
If the trigger was underneath, then because of the weight of it,
Yeah.
it becomes an awkward...
You'd accidentally discharge
accidentally
it.
let it off.
Yeah.
So if the trigger's on top, you can hold it and then you can you can shoot it as
Does
you
that
want.
make it difficult to aim? Or
It's
do you not
it's
really?
Not an
It's
aiming
just a kind of
thing.
point and shoot
Yes.
kind of, yeah.
It's a point and shoot very much. So you just make sure that the nut is in the right position, set the trigger into position, there, and then you just crank it up. Now in the early stages, of course, it doesn't take much effort.
Right.
As you get towards the end, it takes considerably more because 212 pounds is not to be messed
So it is slow to load. It's really a single shot
Yes,
weapon, isn't it?
It is.
If you were using it in combat, but that's not necessarily what it was for. But we don't know.
But we don't know. But I think there are some clues in it. One, it takes a while to load. The other is that this is a fairly plain version. Usually they're really ornate, they're incredibly sculpted, they've got gilding all over them, engraving. They're expensive objects. Would an assassin want an object like that? Is there any need for it? No, there isn't. It's the age of gunpowder. Well, you can shoot people, can't you? A lot more reliably than this is going to do the job. The other is that if you are in Genoa or somewhere like that, you've got your bow. How long is it going to take you to track down the jeweller that engraved it, the crossbow maker that made it? You know, there's
not
too
very
much
covert,
of it.
is
It's
it?
not very
No,
covert.
no.
There's too much of a trail by the very existence of what it is. Whereas if you compare that as an example to a dagger, well, you know, daggers come from everywhere.
Yeah.
There are not many people who are going to be making these. So you're just leaving a trail of evidence that can be found. So my gut reaction is that. The other thing is that you've got a bolt here. Very dinky little bolt.
I think maybe people might have thought an assassin's weapon because it's small and concealable, and it's quieter than a pistol.
Yeah.
And I suppose if you were going to attack someone with the intent of stabbing them to death or whatever, then you could maybe harm them or disable them or distract them. It's a bit like, I suppose, a ninja's throwing star, shuriken kind of thing, isn't it? I suppose you could put one of these bolts into them as you go in to stab them as a way of trying to get the jump on them, I suppose, if you thought they were a formidable opponent.
Yes, you could. I
So
mean, one of these to the
theoretically,
face. Yeah, one of these to the face is going to
Yeah.
ruin your day.
Distract you slightly, wouldn't it?
It is.
Well, we can
Who
see.
knows?
We'll see. We'll
Who
see
knows?
what it does. We're not going to shoot anyone in the face, though. We're gonna.
No.
We've got a target here, which is, and it's all. And I'm going to stand out of the way. Right.
So it's a standard straw boss. The bolt is 8mm diameter, weighs, I think from memory, 7 grams or 9 grams. It's not very heavy.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty deep into the target, actually, isn't it? Can I try and
Pull it out. I'll reload and you can have a shot.
So I know, obviously I've done archery for many years. I know how hard these targets are. If you tried to physically push an arrow into one of these targets, good luck.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Okay, these are pretty hard, especially when like this is a relatively. It's not one that's been shot a lot. They soften up with. That is okay. So it was about that deep into a fairly hard target. That's harder than flesh is. And I would say in terms of penetration depth, I think you probably in someone's body expect slightly more than that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would, yeah.
And in fairness, this is a cylindrical point. With certain other types of point, you could probably get greater penetration, couldn't you, if you had a square section
needle
or something. Yeah. So, that's certainly going to do someone quite some harm, isn't it?
Have a shot.
Oh, scary.
So you're all set up, ready to go.
Right, so that goes on that way.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's have a look. So I keep pointing in the right direction. And then, so it's all thumb based.
Yeah.
So I'm aiming at the centre of the target. So it goes quite high, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, most crossbows do shoot high.
Yeah. So that's a fair... So that basically has gone in the depth of the head, so I could just about see the back of the socket sticking out. So that's about an inch and a bit, isn't
it? 25 mil.
So that's clearly going to injure someone.
Yeah.
What do you think these were for?
I think they were executive toys.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Like the desk trebuchet.
Like the desk trebuchet. There's a fantastic, I think it's described as an after-dinner archery set, which is it's up in the Royal Armouries again, and it is a beautiful Japanese lacquered box with a Japanese bow in it, which breaks in the middle, so the two sides slide together.
Oh, wow.
And the whole thing's about that long. The whole bow's about that long, and the box is like this. And it's got a little rack of all the beautiful little arrows and everything. And it's described as an after-dinner archery set.
Yeah.
And you can imagine you're sitting there drinking your sake in their case, and you just line up your little target and you sit there over the dinner table.
Yeah.
And I think that.
I think that's probably right, and it's when you scale down a crossbow, despite the fact that that's 200 and something pounds draw, it is still a small bow with a very short power stroke, isn't it?
That's what it is.
So you're getting, although people think about poundage, it's also about power stroke. It's about what distance and time is that energy being put into that small light projectile.
Poundage means nothing, and it's just like when you go to the big windlass bows at £1,200 or £1,000 or something. Yeah, it's great big numbers, but the point is the small number is the power stroke, the distance that you're shooting.
Which in that case might be what
6
inches. Yeah.
And so the thing is, yes, that's
compared to a bow, which it might be 20 something inches.
Yeah, 22, 24.
Yeah. So and it also quite a light projectile. So absolutely, it's a missile weapon that shoots a projectile with a pointy tip. Yes, you could hurt people with it. You might be able to really nastily hurt someone with it.
Well, I think the obvious one that we haven't talked about is poison. And these were popular in Spain and Italy, as was poison. So it's conceivable, but I just don't get it.
And so the jury's out, basically, isn't it? It doesn't seem like it's necessarily a weapon. It doesn't seem like it would be an assassin's weapon. It seems like it could be not a toy weapon, but maybe a sort of a gimmick. I don't want to use the word gimmick, but an
executive toy.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a child's thing because it takes too much work to do.
That's true. Yeah, that's a very good point actually. That it does require a certain amount of strength just to load it, doesn't it? And clearly, a very expensive and expertly made. I mean, you just think about making. If you've done some metal work, you've done some filing. Think about making a screw thread. Okay. I mean, that's an inherent part of that machine, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it has to have a good quality, and that's not a simple thing to make.
Not back in those days.
No, it takes a lot of skill and, in some cases, machinery to make. And the bow itself has to be a good quality piece of steel. We've spoken in the past about bows on crossbows and the fact that the potential of them breaking and that kind of stuff when they're under stress. It's a very expertly made piece of gear, and you're the only person that I know of who's well known for making these. Actually, you must like making these as an engineering challenge as.
Yes, I do. I like the mechanisms.
Yeah.
And
I like the
and
fact that
nice.
they're completely metal as well, because that's quite unusual for this time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because most things have some organic. Okay, we've got a string on there,
Yeah.
but it's quite within the context of its time. It's a very unusual looking thing. It almost looks alien. It almost looks like something out of a, it's kind of 60s sci-fi movie, doesn't it? It's quite.
I know what you mean. It's not what you'd expect.
No,
they would have.
No, I think it's a lovely thing. So. To conclude, we don't really know who they were made for and what they were made for, but they are lovely little things, and if you really, really want one, then Todd's the person to come to get one from. And they do look like a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, they are good. I'll show you against wood as well,
Yeah.
actually. So,
oh, yeah.
sometimes they bounce out, but we'll just
I'll
see
stand
how
well
go.
clear.
Oh, it did. It just hit just at the bottom, actually, of a thing. We'll give it another go. Yeah, they are good. They are good fun. No, the real problem is it becomes tiresome. Sorry.
The loading.
No, the fettling. That what you do is you put it together and you check the trigger system, and then you've got to take it all apart. You file a little tiny bit off. You put it back together. You test it. It goes on and on.
I imagine that was the case with locks on firearms as well.
Oh,
getting
sure.
Yeah.
But also any of those sort of things, before the days of computers, you don't really know what you're going to get. Let's just see if we can get that again. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's no disputing the fact that that is going to hurt a lot.
Yeah.
It's not a toy.
It's not a toy, but interestingly, I don't know what the powers of air guns are in other parts of the world. But the air guns in the UK, an air rifle is limited to 12 foot-pounds in power, which is, from memory, about 15 joules. This is coming out at 4 foot-pounds. So this is 1/3 of the power of a regulation air rifle in this country.
Although importantly, it's a very different type of projectile, because this weighs a lot more than a lead pellet.
Exactly.
It doesn't squish, and it's got a sharp steel point on the front.
Exactly.
So.
It comes down to momentum. It's got a lot more.
Yeah.
It's got a lot more, and that shows in what it's doing on the target. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's not just about energy; it's about the momentum of the projectile.
I think one thing we didn't necessarily discuss as well is some people might go hunting. Could it be anything to do with hunting? I don't personally think so, because the level of accuracy
Snail hunting?
is just it's hunting snails. A large boot, I think.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think accuracy is always prime with hunting, isn't it? And or in some cases stopping power. So you could look at something like boar hunting. You need something that's going to, as a last ditch resort, going to protect you.
This is not it.
That is not the right weapon, and equally that is not something you're going to be able to accurately shoot birds or rabbits or anything else like that with. Which you don't need a lot of power for, but you do need accuracy, because you can't get close to them, so you need to be able to shoot them from it. So yeah, I don't think for that either. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's essentially it's a posh toy for someone to shoot targets with, probably.
Yeah, I think it is.
But it's a lovely thing. Anyway, thank you very much for showing us your little Balestrino, Todd. And we'll see you for another video soon, I hope.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Cheers.